don't mind the term African American. I don't want to be called African American.
Why is that?
I'm not African.
My grandmother was a full-blooded Iroquois.
As you're aware, in 1912, Dr. Walter Plecker became the first director of the Bureau of Vital Statistics. But he was part of the eugenics movement, which was a movement about creating one race of people, which was white, and everything else was put in a pot, as Tina Marie would say, and stir it up and call colored.
But basically, when he was the registrar for the Bureau of Vital Records, he changed the names of Indian people in Southampton County.
Exactly.
Their race from Indian to Negro or colored.
No, it was referred to as colored.
The most significant thing here is to reveal the much greater amounts of Native American ancestry that are present within the African American population than most people realize, because they might have been misled by the use of terms like mulatto and also people of color.
Some of us started here in this land. Everybody wasn't brought over from Africa.
It comes as a great shock to discover that Gary Cooper killing off the Indians when you were rooting for Gary Cooper, that the Indians were you. That the Indians were you.
Well, black people are Native Americans. You know, we've had, a lot of proof that, some of us started here in this land. Everybody wasn't brought over from Africa.
What are they doing here? They're Indians.
This is one of my many unsuccessful experiments. You see, with Indians, there's absolutely nothing to be done. There's the same difference between a Negro and an Indian as there is between a dog and a coyote. You can put a dog on a leash, beat him, and he'll always be there to lick your feet. Take away a coyote's liberty, and you've cut off his heir. An Indian will never be a slave. No one has ever been able to make them reproduce in captivity. They do not eat, they do not talk, they do not sleep, they do not make love.
There are several things that are significant about it. Of course, one of them is the way that colonialism tries to develop all kinds of elaborate classification terms for different kinds of people, but that's another subject. The most significant thing here is to reveal the much greater amounts of Native American ancestry that are present within the African American population than most people realize, because they might have been misled by the use of terms like mulatto and also people of color.
After the African, LeVar Burton, had been told that his name was to be Toby, and he refused it, and he was beaten to make him say his name was Toby.
How was the dramatization? How much of that actually was recounted to you? I mean, was there a lot of interweaving?
A lot of it, I thought maybe you were going to ask, and maybe you are in another way, is how much of the book is fact and how much is fiction. Well, a whole lot of it's fiction. Well, a whole lot of it's fiction. Well, a whole lot of it's fiction.
Now, this is just a tiny bit of information now.
But they take it as huge.
Right, because it's cracking open the door.
There's a place in Africa you could say that I'm from. A tribe? I am thrilled. It puts a name, a place, a location, a people.
Hank really is concerned that the science isn't really there yet for you to be giving them the name of a tribe.
I think for most companies, I would be concerned too.
But what about your own company?
We have the largest...
He didn't exclude you. He included you.
But we have the largest set of sequences from Africa. And so with that, we're able to provide some level of probability in terms of frequency.
But he would say that even though you have the largest database, it's still small on the scope of things.
As I said, I share those concerns. We don't oversell. I mean, we just say, look, we provide a service. If you're interested in exploring a tiny bit of your DNA and trace its ancestry, we can do that.
When you say it's a tiny little amount,
it's less than 0.1%. Less than 0.1%. Less than 0.1%.
And that's pretty teeny.
Yeah, but for people who know nothing about any of them, I think it's very important.
You do not know a goddamn thing about Africa. I am from Detroit, Motown. So you can want Tootsie your monkey ass back to Africa if you want to.
Hey y'all, how y'all doing?
Sorry about the late jokes, y'all. Sorry about the late Educational Friday. I got off late. It's been crazy, but don't worry about it. It's all temporary because y'all gonna have me full time here in some months. I'll just say that. But shout out to everybody in the building. Y'all come in, get the likes up on the video, please, and thank you. Get the video in the algorithm. And we got to start the Educational Friday. Thank you, DD, for being a member for 9 months. I appreciate you. Hey, Voodoo, love you down to the ground. Keep doing what you're doing. Love your Educational Fridays. Thank you so much. I got to fix this. Girl, I was rushing. I'm sorry. Thank you so much, DD. I appreciate you. And I appreciate all your support as well. But y'all get in here and like the video. Today, we're discussing James Baldwin. I've always been, before I knew who he was, I've always seen him. James Baldwin was a profound, prolific orator and debater, and he was just amazing. He was just, to me, you know what I mean? People, of course, question his sexuality, you know, and you can mention it, but at the end of the day, what he's done for especially college-age Black Americans and others of surrounding Black Americans is monumental. He really is. And I don't think he gets spoken about enough. I have him in some of the clips y'all seen on the intro. And I feel like it's something that we need to talk about. And I've always wondered, you know, a lot about his background and stuff like that. And, you know, I just wanted to bring this to y'all and kind of give y'all a little perspective on James Baldwin. So I got the bio pulled up for him. Y'all get the likes up on the video. But I have his bio pulled up, and it was some interesting stuff I found about him, but we'll get into it. Very intelligent guy, very, very intelligent guy, very smart man. And honestly, couldn't nobody hang with him when it come to that debate. It was so much when he would do debates, like people would come from all over, you know what I'm saying, to watch him debate. Like he was just one of the greats. Like people don't talk about debates that often, but when we were heavily into debates and all that stuff and education and all that stuff, and which we still are, but in the way in which they were, bar none. So I want to get into James Baldwin and some things of that nature. They have some very strong family features, I'll tell you that. But this is James Baldwin, and to get into him, it says James Arthur Baldwin, 1924 to 1987, was born in Harlem, New York, August 2nd, 1924, to Emma Burgess Jones, originally from Deal Island, Maryland. It says he was reared by his mother and stepfather, David Baldwin, a Baptist preacher originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, whom Baldwin referred to as his father and who he described as extremely strict. He did not know his biological father. As the eldest of 9 children, Baldwin took seriously the responsibility of being a brother and his mother's right hand. He cared for and protected his 3 younger brothers and 5 sisters in a household governed by the rigid rules of their father. Now, here's a picture of James. Sits with his nephew, Tahan Khalifa Smart. Tahan was an inspiration for Baldwin's only children book, Little Man, Little Man. So that's dope. They got some strong family features, though. Them Baldwins, you know who they is. Between the ages of 14 and 17, Baldwin became a preacher at the Fireside Pentecostal Assembly, where he developed a celebrated preaching style. His brief experience in the church would have sustained impact on his rhetorical style and on the themes, symbols, and biblical allusions in his writings. Baldwin's Pentecostal experience is, in fact, essential to understanding his complex views on Christianity, which he espoused in his speech and publications. His experience in the pulpit also served to inflect his overall stance on religion and his ultimate rejection of it in the name of humanistic love. It says, in The Fire Next Time, Baldwin proclaims, if the concept of God has any validity or any use, it can only be to make us larger, freer, and more loving. If God cannot do this, it is time we get rid of him. You know, it's so crazy that's probably what drew me to James Baldwin, because I've always thought that God he didn't only live or exist in the construct of religion. I'm talking about from a little bitty girl. I just never seen it. You know what I'm saying? I just literally never seen it. And I get people, you know, grow up in that type of situation, and I have too, but I just never, you know, seen it. MOB, thank you for being a member for 8 months. Hey, Acorn, I'm at the hospital. My wife has a slight fever. Pray for us. You and your wife are definitely in our prayers. Tell her they got that bird flu going around. They got a whole bunch of other stuff going around. I think something was in the snow. Make sure when y'all get out there, she up on her vitamins. She get outside, get some fresh air. Make sure y'all sanitize the crib. You know what I'm saying? You know my prayers is up for y'all. For my sister-in-law, yeah. Tell her I said prayers is in the air. And take care of herself. Get some vitamin C, some vitamin D. And yeah, she gonna be all right. She gonna be all right. She might be pregnant. Are y'all pregnant yet? I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, prayers is definitely up for you, MOB, and your wife. Tell her we definitely keeping her in our prayers and we thinking of her. And keep us updated too, MOB. Please keep us updated. Thank you so much. That's my, you know, they newlyweds. I'm so happy for them, bro. I really am. I'm so happy for them. But she gonna be all right. She just probably got a little slight fever. She be home. You know what I'm saying? That's how it be. So I thought with James Baldwin, he and I shared that same thing. I don't think that God exists inside of religion. I think that he can exist inside of religion, but I don't think that you have to have religion in order to have God. And honestly, he grew up Pentecostal, but when you grow up under strict religion, I don't care what religion it is, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Baptist, Catholic, Jehovah's Witness, Pentecostal, non-denomination, when you grow up under strict religion, it typically makes you kind of, I don't know why, it makes you kind of look at it differently. And me growing up under strict religion, I just never thought, even when we was going to Baptist church with my grandma, I just never thought that he had to be inside the church because I always saw the bad things inside of it, but we shared that in common. Oh yeah, Shun. She said, why y'all didn't tell me there was no eggs? It's definitely something in that snow. I got sick right after. Let me tell you something. They ain't got no eggs nowhere in America. I went out looking for eggs the next day. Couldn't find an egg to save my life. My coworker just called me today. She went looking for eggs. Couldn't find an egg nowhere to save their life. But the clear boy who worked with me said that because of the bird flu, they ain't got no eggs. Now, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, they ain't got no eggs nowhere. Nowhere. So if y'all need eggs and you ain't got no chickens in the backyard, you got to wait. They done took all the eggs about the store, girl. No eggs. It kind of remind me when they ain't have no chicken wings, but they had leg quarters. But yeah, they ain't got no eggs nowhere. So if y'all looking for eggs, please don't go to the store because they ain't got none. I don't care where you at. They ain't got no eggs. Because I was going to the store the next day after it snowed. I was going to go home and make me some bacon and eggs and probably a little side of grits. And the egg said, look for me. The egg said, look for me. So yeah, there is no more eggs. You're absolutely right, Sean. Ebony said they got eggs in VA. Well, girl, you better go stock up. Because they ain't got none in Georgia. They ain't got none in Louisiana. They ain't got none in a few states that I heard. Yes, ma'am. All the eggs is gone. And if you see them in there and they talking about bird flu, child, I'd probably be scared to buy them. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna lie. I'd probably be scared to buy them. Hey, but as it pertains to that snow, y'all, for real, a lot of people have been coming up sick. Now, I didn't play in the snow. I did let Saint go in there. Saint looked like he all right, but we'll see. You know what I'm saying? So y'all be careful out there. I told y'all something in the milk ain't clean. Something in the milk ain't clean. All right. So back to James Baldwin. He says during his early teen years, Baldwin attended Frederick Douglass Junior High School, where he met his French teacher and mentor, Countee Cullen, who achieved prominence as a poet of the Harlem Renaissance, of course. Baldwin went on to DeWitt Clinton High School, where he edited the school literary magazine Magpie and participated in the literary club, just as Cullen had done when he was a student there. By high school graduation, he had a group of close friends from DeWitt Clinton, Richard Avedine, Emile Capoya, and Sol Steen, with whom he kept in touch and even collaborated in some of his works, in such as Avedine and Steen. Okay, those are the ones he kept in touch with and worked with. The 1940s marked several turning points in Baldwin's life. In 1942, he graduated from high school, and a year later, he witnessed the Harlem Race Riot of 1943 and experienced the death of his father. That's another thing we're going to get into. Red Summer and the Harlem Race Riots. I want to get into that because remember, It was the illusion that they didn't have racial issues up north. But the fact of the matter is they definitely had racial issues. And I do want to get into the Harlem race riots and also the Red Summer, as far as like just other stuff that was going on back in the day. But he lost his father in 1943 during the Harlem race riot. It says, after his emotional loss, Baldwin felt more than ever that it was important to play father figure to his 8 brothers and sisters. He could not even dream of college and therefore worked at menial jobs during the day and at night played guitar in Greenwich Village cafes, where he also wrote for long hours trying to fulfill his dream of becoming a writer. So he had to drop out of college and take care of his siblings. It says in 1944, Baldwin met Richard Wright, who was a famous African-American male writer at the time and whose work spoke to his sensibility. In time, Wright would also become his mentor, for Baldwin appreciated Wright's strong opinions about race in America, and he also greatly valued their intellectual exchanges. Wright helped Baldwin to obtain a fellowship to write his first novel, which enabled him to leave for Paris in 1948, where the older writers had relocated a few years earlier. However, while in France, the two were often at odds about the ways in which they approached race in writings. Baldwin wrote 3 essays explicating his critiques of Wright's protest art in the novel Native Son, 1940. Their disagreement eventually led to the demise of their friendship, which Baldwin regretted after Wright's death in 1960. In 1948, at age 24, Baldwin left the United States to live in Paris, France, as he could not tolerate the racial and sexual discrimination he experienced daily. As Kendall Thomas, professor of law and critical race studies at Columbia University explains, Baldwin left his country because of racism and Harlem because of homophobia, 2 aspects of his identity that made him a frequent target of beatings by local youth and police. When asked about his departure, Baldwin explained in the Paris Review interview from 1984, my luck was running out. I was going to go to jail. I was going to kill somebody or be killed. In Paris, Baldwin began to interact with other writers. He reconnected with Richard Wright, and for the first time, he met Maya Angelou, with whom he maintained a close relationship until the end of his life. Baldwin would spend the next 40 years abroad, where he wrote and published most of his works. Between 1948 and 1957, he lived in France and traveled in Europe. And from 1961 to 1970, Baldwin lived for long periods in Istanbul and visited many other places in Turkey. The violence and assassinations of Black leaders in the United States during the politically turbulent 1960s took an emotional toll on him. After the assassination of 3 friends, Medgar Evers in 1963, Malcolm X in 1965, and Martin Luther King Jr. in 1968, Baldwin suffered an emotional breakdown, became ill, and eventually moved to the south of France to recuperate. In 1971, he settled in a house in the village of St. Paul de Vence, which he would later buy piece by piece as he received payments for his publications. Accounts vary as to the final sale having taken place. It says in St. Paul, he would create his most enduring household. Now, listen, this is the thing. A lot of people don't know this, but France has always been open about sexuality, open about freedom of expression. They say it, I didn't say it, but that's why they say, what's her name? Light-skinned lady who used to dance. Oh, girl, she used to do the show dances and they used to get nude and stuff. Y'all know what I'm talking about. She used to take the tops off and all that. A lot of them people went to France because it wasn't as strenuous as being in America. Obviously, you had the race issues going on. You had a whole bunch of other stuff. Josephine Baker, thank you so much. Thank you. Josephine Baker, amongst others. But yes, that's why Josephine Baker went to France, because she was getting a lot of backlash, and it was harder for Josephine Baker to be in America doing what she was doing, whereas in France, it was more open, it was more left-leaning, it was more, you can be you. So a lot of homosexual people or down low people moved to France. And it's funny he mentioned Maya Angelou, because I heard she was one of them too. Shout out to Maya Angelou, but I'm just saying, a lot of them went to France because of that. Oh girl, yes ma'am. Was she gay? Girl. Oh, let's go with bisexual. But yes, Josephine Baker. Girl, we gotta do it. We need to do an educational Friday on her too, huh? Girl, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. 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 Now that I heard. I haven't confirmed it, but that I heard. And it makes sense, but I heard about that. Yeah. A lot of those artists, though, rather it was whatever art they did, a lot of them went to France because it was free. Listen, especially when you're dealing with race, now you got to deal with your own people that want to beat you up and tear you down. You know what I'm saying? Just because of your sexuality. So you fighting being black and gay. I don't blame them people. I probably would have dipped out too. I ain't gonna lie. Hey, because I gotta worry about the white people and my people. You know what I'm saying? Like I would have dipped out too. I ain't gonna lie. So I don't even blame them people. But he's always been open about his sexuality. I'm talking about James Baldwin. He's never hid who he was. And a lot of people saw it, but he was such a great debater and orator. It didn't even matter. And I don't know if he knew that. And to some people, it did matter, obviously, because you got weird people. You know what I'm saying? You have really weird people. But for the most part, I think he did his big one. You know, I think that people respected James Baldwin. That's why he was still able to do interviews and do stuff in America, you know, and people were running to go, you know, see what he got to say because he was that much respected. But shout out to James Baldwin. Yeah. So that's him in France. Where are all the pigeons? You know, we used to have pigeons in New Orleans. Every time I've been down there, I ain't seen Anne Reed pigeon. We used to have pigeons in New Orleans. Does anybody know where the pigeons are? New York. Do they got pigeons still up there? Where's all the pigeons? Anybody ever asked about that? Like, I be worried about, I think about stuff like that. Is anybody asked, where is all the pigeons? Y'all got pigeons? Put it in the chat if you got pigeons where you at. Somebody say in the restaurants. Not the restaurants, Meek. Not the Chinese restaurants. For real, I haven't seen pigeons in a long time. I haven't seen them. And we used to have them all the time, especially in New Orleans. We used to have pigeons outside. I don't see them. Or they got them in Philly. Maybe they all migrated to Philly, girl. I don't know. You can say Mike Tyson got them. Y'all crazy. But shout out to James Baldwin. He had to go to France and do what he had to do. Plus, they were paying better in France, too. It says, during his earlier years abroad, Baldwin returned to the United States frequently and considered himself a transatlantic commuter. In 1955, he signed a lease for an apartment at 63 West 97th Street in New York. And from the mid-1960s on, he maintained a home nearby at 137 West 71st Street. So he was going back and forth. He was by Continental, I guess. He was like going back and forth. When Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in 1968, Baldwin was living in California in a rented house in Los Angeles, where he was writing a screenplay based on the Alex Haley's autobiography of Malcolm X. Oh, that just put a rich in me. He received the tragic news while visiting London with his sister Gloria. Many of Baldwin's extended visits to the United States were to spend time with his large and beloved family and to participate in civil rights movement events. He attended the March on Washington in 1963 and the Selma to Montgomery March in 1965. Baldwin also participated in literary events such as the 1965 conference titled The Negro Writer's Vision of America, sponsored by the New School of Social Research in New York. During his presentation, Baldwin addressed the conference theme saying, "I know a story which America denies, and it denies it for the very good reason that my story once told confronts it with the truth about itself. In fact, my story once told will liberate America. The possibility of liberation, the necessity of becoming responsible for one's own life is what most people profoundly fear." That's a bar. That is a bar. Do you hear me? After a short battle with stomach cancer, Baldwin passed away on November 30th, 1987, in his house in St. Paul de Vence. A week later, he was laid to rest at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine in New York City and buried at the Ferncliff Cemetery in New York City. Family members and friends participated in a large service during which Toni Morrison, Amari Baraka, and Maya Angelou delivered touching remarks about their friend and brother. Angelou said, "Baldwin's love opened the unusual door for me, and I'm blessed that James Baldwin was my brother." That's dope. Shout out to the ancestor James Baldwin. irregardless or irrespective to whatever his sexuality was, that didn't mean nothing. That man was one of the goats. He really was. He truly was. He was one of the goats. But we wouldn't be able to talk about it if we didn't talk about his personal life and obviously his sexuality, right? So in this article, we're just gonna touch on a little bit over here about his complex and influential, right? It says the work of writer James Baldwin, subject of the Oscar-nominated film I Am Not Your Negro, was influenced by his complex sexuality, scholar says. It says author, radical, activist, public intellectual, unapologetically black prophet. These are words historically used to describe writer James Baldwin, subject of the Oscar-nominated documentary I Am Not Your Negro, inspired by an unfinished manuscript Baldwin was working on at the time of his death in 1987 about the lives of Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Medgar Evers. However, Baldwin's complex sexuality identity was largely avoided in the film, and this has created mixed emotions for Baldwin fans and scholars. Intersexuality is how Chris Freeman, professor of English at the University of Southern California, described Baldwin. He was intersectional before there was a classification for intersectional. Freeman told NBC, "He is the reason we even have the word." According to Michelle Gordon, a visiting assistant professor of African American Studies at Emory University, it was Baldwin's intersectional identity that made him an outsider. All of that shapes his message and his life experiences and his interpretation of his life experiences. Gordon told NBC being black in America, being black and gay in America, being a black American in Europe, being black and gay in the world, it all gives him an outsider status, which allows him the ability to see the world so clearly because he did not quite fit. That's crazy. It was that outsider status that influenced his work, his writing, and his voice. Gordon, who saw the film day after it released in Atlanta, references a point in the film where Baldwin spoke about why he chose to live abroad and how black oppression stifled him as a writer. Quote, when he talks about the constant threat of death and of dogged dehumanization that he experienced in America with that over his shoulder, he could write, she said, going abroad let him be a writer and let him see America from a different angle. That outsider position that he seemed to frequently occupy in almost every group he was in is an important part of that, and certainly his sexual identity and orientation is also a bigger part of that. Baldwin's sexual identity is referenced almost in passing in the film by way of an FBI memo. According to Gordon, during that time, the tactic of questioning one's queerness was used to discredit individuals the government considered to be radicals. It was not only done to Baldwin, but also others like Langston Hughes. We just talked about Langston Hughes. All right, it says the memo is how the film's director Raoul Peck broaches the topic of Baldwin's sexuality. There are other references to sexuality in the film. One where Baldwin, in the voice of Samuel L. Jackson, talks about America's fear to portray black males as sex symbols in the media. The other is when Baldwin shares the experience of having to hide a relationship he had with a white woman while living in New York. He shares that he and the woman could not be seen together in public, having to walk on opposite sides of the streets or ride on opposite ends of the subway train. His sexuality was complicated as the rest of him and did not follow strict dichotomies of love, Gordon said, adding that as viewers, we have to have the mind of historians. There are a lot of people who are uncomfortable about homosexuality and his critique of masculinity. For a long time, when he was talked about by scholars, it was not only about his sexual orientation. It has also been in the past 15 or maybe 20 years that this discussion of his sexuality has begun. This the thing. So this how you know this stuff been around forever, right? So I'm reading, what's the name of the book? I'm reading this book on They Came Before Columbus. That's the name of it. And in South America, the Spaniards ran across a group of what we would call either cross-dresser or TS, and they accused them of sodomy. Well, obviously that's their lifestyle, and they ended up unaliving all them people. That stuff has been around since the beginning of time. I think all the new labels on it, I think that's a bit excessive, but for what it was, it's been around since the beginning of time. And the fact that James Baldwin, like I said, had to go through what he went through and have to live abroad in order to even feel safe, to even do what he got to do, I think that's messed up. I really do, because who cares? Again, I think when people obsess with other people's personal lives, especially one like James Baldwin, because it ain't like he was all up in your face and all, you know what I'm saying? Well, yeah, Bree said so he was gay and like white women. Isn't that a stereotype now? Absolutely. Typically, yeah. I remember watching Cynthia G, and she had said something. That's what made me look into it. But she was like, typically, the white woman is the last step they go to before they go gay. I was like, oh, yeah. But nevertheless, I just hate that, especially during a time where it was super shunned. Like, I just hate that he had to do that. Like, I really do. I really do hate that he had to go all the way somewhere else to even. Like, I just think that's messed up. I don't know. I don't care what nobody do. I just, especially from his own people, you know. Yeah. Thank you, son, for the super chat. Hey, boo, love y'all down to the ground. Like the video. Yes, like the video, guys. Please like the video. It just sucks that he had to go through that, because I'm pretty sure he did not live the best life that he wanted to live, given, you know, how he had to go somewhere else to do it. Like, that's crazy. Freeman calls the omission a major flaw in the film, because they didn't even want it in TV back then. It presents only a partial view of why Baldwin has such an adversarial view of American culture. Freeman said, as after seeing the film and listening to the director speak about it on PBS, Tavis Smiley's show. Oh. Charles Stevens, executive director of Counter Narrative Project, CNP, pointed out Baldwin's identity as a Black gay man during the organization's screening of the film in Atlanta. He said CNP held the screening because it believes Baldwin's voice is needed now more than ever. Black gay men in particular have found in Baldwin a kind of father figure, Stephen told NBC Out. There isn't a single Black gay writer of literary fiction or nonfiction that has not been influenced by James Baldwin on some levels. As we seek to navigate our current political moment, we believe that James Baldwin offers a necessary blueprint for how we continue to fight for social justice. Stevens says he does not think for a second that Baldwin's sense of self in terms of his sexuality was marginal to his writings in activism. Yeah. But, you know, I do find it questionable that he come up under them feds. Y'all know me. You know what I'm saying? I do scratch my little temple to know he come up under them feds, Langston Hughes and all of them, and Maya Angelou and all of them. Allegedly. All right, I want to get into a couple of videos I want to show y'all, just to give y'all kind of a glance at who he was. One of the clips I have in here in my intro of James Baldwin was one of the when he did the interview with what's the lady name? Freak. I just said her name too. We'll catch it. What's the lady name? Shit. Nikki Giovanni. And I'll pull that up too. Nikki Giovanni. But I want to show y'all. Hold on. I want to show y'all. Hold on, James. Hold on. No thanks. I want to share a couple of clips of the inside of the great James Baldwin. This is Who Is the Nigger? All right, check it out.
Well, I know this, and anyone who's ever tried to live knows this. So what you say about somebody else, you know, anybody else, reveals you. What I think of you as being is dictated by my own necessities, my own psychology, my own fears and desires. I'm not describing you when I talk about you. I'm describing me. Now here in this country, we've got something called a nigger. It doesn't in such terms, I beg you to remark, exist in any other country in the world. We have invented the nigger. I didn't invent him. White people invented him. I've always known, I had to know by the time I was 17 years old. What you were describing was not me, and what you were afraid of was not me. It had to be something else. You had invented it, so it had to be something you were afraid of, and you invested me with it. Now that's so. No matter what you've done to me, I can say to you this, and I mean it. I know you can't do any more, and I got nothing to lose. And I know, and I've always known, and really always, that's part of the agony. I've always known that I'm not a nigger. But if I am not the nigger, and if it's true that your invention reveals you, then who is the nigger? I'm not the victim here.
I don't want that part to go over our head. Let's run him back. What you say, James? That was a bar right there.
But if I am not the nigger, and if it's true that your invention reveals you, then who is the nigger?
Ooh, I wish I had a bomb to drop. I wish I had a bomb to drop. I needed to give me some sound effects. I'll drop that bomb right there. That was a bar. That was a bar.
I'm not the victim here. I know one thing from another. And I know I'm going to born and I'm going to be, I was born, I'm going to suffer, and I'm going to die. And the only way you get through life is to know the worst things about it. I know that a person is more important than anything else. Anything else. I learned this because I've had to learn it. But you still think, I gather, that the nigger is necessary. Well, he's unnecessary to me, so he must be necessary to you. So I give you your problem back. You're the nigger, baby. He isn't me.
Bars. 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 On top of bars. Okay? Let's really be clear about that. Hold on. All right. I want to share. Hold on. I want to share this news clip about Baldwin, kind of taking a look back at his influence on art and stuff like that. Y'all get the likes up on the video.
This month, the legendary writer and activist James Baldwin would have turned 100 years old. Baldwin is best known for his novels and essays, and as a moral voice addressing race, sexuality, and the very fabric of American democracy. Nearly 40 years after his death, his words are more relevant than ever. Jeffrey Brown looks at his enduring legacy for our series, Art in Action, exploring the intersection of art and democracy, and our ongoing Canvas coverage.
The inequality suffered by the American Negro population of the United States has hindered the American dream.
James Baldwin, novelist, essayist, civil rights activist, public intellectual, here debating William F. Buckley Jr. at the University of Cambridge in 1965.
He's engaged in this ongoing work of self-creation, in this sustained reflection on the power of the American idea. He's bringing the full weight of his intellect to bear on this project.
Mind you, that's one of his most famous debates with William Buckley. That's the one where you say, and I have the clip in my video when he said, when it was a time where y'all were watching the movie and you were rooting for Gary Cooper. He said, but the Indians were you. He was talking to black people in a room full of white folks, basically saying the stuff they've been telling you about your history has been a lie. That was one of those. That was one of those pronoun speeches / debates that they said people came from all over to watch that debate. and he bodied them. Do you hear me? Bodied them. That was how I found him, from that debate.
Glaude Jr. is a professor of African American Studies at Princeton University and author of the 2020 book, Begin Again, James Baldwin's America and its Urgent Lessons for Our Own.
I think if you read Baldwin closely, there is this underlying idea that we have yet to discover who we are, right? Because the ghosts of the past in so many ways not only blind us, but they have us by the throat.
James Arthur Baldwin was born in Harlem in 1924 and raised there by his mother and stepfather, a Baptist preacher. The oldest of 9 children, he excelled in school and served as a junior minister. A man on the margins, black and queer, he spent years of his life abroad, much of it in France, beginning at age 24. He wrote novels, including Go Tell It on the Mountain, an autobiographical book about growing up in Harlem, and Giovanni's Room, about a tormented love affair between 2 men living in Paris, and powerful essays exploring race and American identity, including Notes of a Native Son and The Fire Next Time.
He's one of the greatest essayists we've ever produced, the world has ever produced, I think. And his subject is us, but his vantage point is not that of a victim. His vantage point is from those who've had to bear the burden of America's refusal to look itself squarely in the face.
He was also a playwright and poet, an activist who marched and spoke out for civil rights, including on television, here on The Dick Cavett Show in 1969.
And the word Negro in this country really is designed finally to disguise the fact that when it's talking about another man, a man like you, who wants what you want. And insofar as the American Republic wants to think there has been progress, they overlook one very simple thing. I don't want to be given anything by you. I just want you to leave me alone so I can do it myself.
Baldwin died in 1987, but he's remained a powerful cultural presence, one that's only grown in the past decade.
There are days, this is one of them, when you wonder what your role is in this country and what your future is in it.
In the 2016 documentary, I Am Not Your Negro, director Raoul Peck drew from Baldwin's own words. As he told me then,
he was already a classic, and he wrote those things 40, 50 years ago. And watching the film, you think that he wrote that in the morning before, watching the film, because those words are so accurate, they are so prescient, and so impactful that you can't do it better.
I ain't gonna lie. One thing I noticed about our greats, even with Malcolm X, hell, even with Martin, some of the stuff he said, a lot of them people, when they spoke about what was going on in the 60s, them people is talking like if you hear it in 2025, you literally feel like they could be saying it today sitting across from you. And what that tells me, this is just me, but what that tells me is the world has not changed at all. Like literally, because how is it that what Malcolm said in the 60s, what James Baldwin said in the 60s, you know what I'm saying? Like what all of these people said in the 60s, how is it that their words still ring true almost 100 years later? I just think that that's crazy, and that tells me that these people are amongst our greats. And it's just that, like, these people are amongst our greats. Tina, thank you for the super chat. She says, just saying hello to my favorite content creator. Oh, hey, boo. Hey, hon. Thank you so much for the super chat. But it's crazy. That goes to show you that we think we made all this progress. We ain't did nothing. Because them people still, you go pull up an old lecture from any one of them folk, and it sound like they talking today. That's crazy to me.
In 2018, Baldwin's 1974 novel, If Beale Street Could Talk, was adapted by Oscar-winning director Barry Jenkins.
Whether I won 8 Oscars or no Oscars, it's James damn Baldwin. Right.
it's James Baldwin. You know, that's pressure enough in and of itself, because I wanted to honor his legacy in the way that I thought it should be honored.
And now a celebration of the centennial of his birth, including an exhibition at the National Portrait Gallery called This Morning, This Evening, So Soon, James Baldwin and the Voices of Queer Resistance, which takes its name from a short story he published in 1960. Another at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, titled Jimmy, God's Black Revolutionary Mouth, presenting Baldwin's archive of personal papers. There's a new album by singer-songwriter and bassist Michelle Ndegeocello called No More Water, the Gospel of James Baldwin.
Love does not begin and end the way we seem to think it does.
And reissues of seminal works with new introductions and artwork.
What is the best lesson that you've learned?
And reissue.
Look how they lightened him up. Especially this one in the middle. See, you got to be careful. Look at how they lightened him up. Because see, they be done say he looked something completely different in the next 40, 50 years. You got to be careful with these folks. I don't like how they lightened him up. He looks the same as far as his features, but that ain't James Baldwin the more you look at each of these publications. I hate when they do that. I really hate when they do that.
Issues of seminal works with new introductions and artwork.
What is the best lesson that you've learned being in the spiritual community that you're in with James Baldwin?
Along with a podcast, The Baldwin 100, in which host Cree Miles talks with contemporary writers and thinkers. What is his relevance today, especially when you think about younger people, younger readers, younger citizens?
Despite the time that has passed, his amount of truth is still relatively radical. Even when I think about like his novels and like Giovanni's Room, and we're thinking about the ways that he grappled with like sexuality, those are still things that I think we're coming to terms with.
Acclaimed Irish novelist Colm Tóibín contributed the new book on James Baldwin.
I'm interested in him as, I suppose, someone who really found ways of dealing with individuality versus community, with being an artist in a difficult time, but more than anything, he wrote well.
Tóibín saw connections to his own upbringing and told us how Baldwin has influenced him as writer and man.
It's a question of engaging with this great intelligence and with this sensuous intelligence, with someone who's sort of thinking brilliantly in a glittering sort of way. But it is also, of course, developing strategies, which he did in relation to his family, in relation to Harlem, in relation to Black America, in relation to exile, in relation to attempting to being an artist in a time of flux, and also in a way of being a gay artist, a homosexual artist coming out of a world which is very conservative and very religious, and attempting also to build strategies around that give you energy rather than ones that take you down.
One deeply resonant thread through all the commemorations, Baldwin's focus on the fragility of democracy itself.
Baldwin's exposing the lie that is the source of the suffering that defines this fragile project, it seems to me. He's committed to democracy. He's committed to America. After all, we are deeply American, but by virtue of that commitment, he has to relentlessly critique it.
It comes as a great shock to discover that the country, which is your birthplace and to which you owe your life and your identity, has not in its whole system of reality evolved any place for you.
A commitment, as Glaude puts it, to the complex experiment called America. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Jeffrey Brown.
That's crazy work. Yeah. You got to be careful with who telling your story and what they saying about you, because he ain't here to tell his own story. Yeah, I just... I don't know, y'all. Let's get his iconic scene with Nikki Giovanni. We talked about that. It's in my intro. Y'all have seen it on my intro. This is an older video. I'm sorry. This is an older video from Nikki Giovanni. She's the young girl with the afro, and he was talking about how we are the indigenous people of the land, and we need to take it back and stuff like that. And she was young coming up under him too. That's crazy. But she had the pleasure of even sitting with him, because that was a pleasure.
I thought, yeah, only Jimmy could nail it like that. He wrote almost poetically. And so every time you read it, you're getting something else out of it. He told the truth, and he never backed off of it. Well, I think anybody who reads encountered Baldwin when I did when I was a teenager, because he's been writing for quite some time. I was born in 1943, so I've been going to libraries all of my life. And Jimmy, he was Mr. Baldwin to me at that particular time, was one of the first or one of the earlier Black writers writing essays. So, you've been reading Baldwin because, again, you can read him and reread. And I think that's probably a good mark for any writer, to be reread. But I think when my generation, because the Baldwin generation is 20 years older than we are, I think what we saw from them was you can tell the truth. So when I started coming up with my career, I was older favored by PBS broadcasting. And they asked, the producer of the show, Soul, asked me what did I want. And I said, if I could do anything, I would like to meet James Baldwin. And he said, I know Jimmy, I'll call him. And much to my surprise, he said, well, I'd love to talk to Nikki, but I don't have time to come to the States. Would she mind coming to London? I said, I'll walk to London to talk to James Baldwin. And we came to London, which is why the film, it's a documentary, and why it is, I think, so good, if I may, is that the British look differently at filming. And both Jimmy and I talk with our hands. The Americans would never have photographed our hands in the same way. So it was just really great being able to do this film with him. Describing Jimmy, he was a very gentle person, and he was a great storyteller. And I would describe him, one, as a great storyteller. And actually, when you look at Jimmy's face, he's a good-looking man. And it's kind of funny because at first you look at him and think, oh, this is not Harry Belafonte, because Harry was sexy. And I don't think that Jimmy was sexy, but he was a good-looking man that somehow his presence always made you feel comfortable, that you didn't feel that you were in any danger, if I can use that term. Mostly with Jimmy, because he's a great storyteller, what you did was you sat and you listened. And again, those were, for lack of a better word, the big kids. I'm a Southerner. And so I grew up with kids could be seen but not heard. And so when you're sitting at the table and James Baldwin is there and Nina Simone is there, or sometimes, King would come in or whatever, because they knew everybody and everybody respected them. We're just the kids. And so the intelligent thing to do was to sit and listen, because you had nothing to add. If you thought something, then you went home and wrote a poem about it. But you had nothing to add to that conversation. It's so hard.
I want to share with y'all a clip of them together back in the Gap.
I think that the only thing that's changed in the last, since Martin Luther King, since 54, I think the only thing that's really changed is the Black woman. And what she
I
said.
don't think she's changed. I think she's become more visible.
I think she's changed. Because there was a time, let's say my mother, my aunts and things like that, they would say, okay, if that's the way you establish your manhood, I'm going to go for it. And my generation says, hey, no good. Okay. You must establish a new base.
I'll agree with that.
And we are, as a group, demanding that a new base be established.
Yeah, but be careful as a woman of what you demand of a man.
I demand that he be a man.
Yeah, but you can't
because
say,
the provision part.
Yeah, but you can't say you demand it. You have to suggest it.
Well, that's your ego that says that. No, I demand it. Now you deal with that.
All right. Okay. I'll even go with that.
I demand that you be a man, and I don't think that that's asking too much. Because if I wanted a provision, say I would get a camper. You know what I mean? I would get a camper that provides things. You know what I mean? You get an army surplus kit that provides things. I need a man, and Black men have always been offered to provisions. People are either going to eat or starve to death. The men of beyond, the people were starving that they were still the men. Had to be that way. through that horrendous kind of war, but it had to be that way because sometimes you're not able to feed your family.
You know, now that I'm out of that headspace, looking at this stuff is informative, but it's cringe too. Because the conversation has to be had. It is. It really does and did have to be had. But when you fast forward to where we are today, I kind of wonder if things could have been a little bit differently. Because this is the beginning of the rise of the woman, you know. Again, the conversation has to be had. But I would wonder how things would turn out if they were done or tweaked just a little bit. If they were just done just a little bit differently. You know, I don't know.
Sometimes you're not able to clothe your family. Do you then also deprive them of your manhood and of the input that a man has? Who teaches my son how to pee?
Yeah, but
you see?
Yeah, but you're talking. I agree with you. I see that very well. But it's one thing to be in a situation where you see that you have, where you see a future, however bloody, and to be in a situation where you see no future at all.
But you are. It is incumbent.
If I know,
it is incumbent
if
that
I know
we see a future.
If I know what I'm demanding of you, in some sense, makes sense. If I know the fact the kid is not eating today or tonight or tomorrow, in some way makes sense. Yeah, then I can be there. But if it doesn't make any sense, and if I don't see anything coming out of it at all,
will he eat if you're not there?
If you're on welfare, you won't eat if I am there. That's the law. But I don't want to get bogged down into that. What I really mean is that, yes, a man can do that if he sees a way, if he sees that it means something. My father couldn't see that. And he was quite right, because there wasn't anything.
There's something, because all I know that works in the world is a relationship.
Yes, all right.
Okay, that's all that's going to work. It takes two people to have a relationship.
Yeah, but the relationship.
If you don't have a dream, fake it.
But the relationship, you can't fake a dream.
You got to fake it, because we don't have dreams these days. How the hell can you have a dream? For what?
Well, it isn't.
So everybody's jiving, but let's jive on that level.
If I love you, I can't lie to you.
Of course you can lie to me, and you will. If you love me and you're going off with Maddie someplace, you're lying to me. Because what the hell do I care about the truth? I care if you're there. What Billie Holiday say, hush now, don't explain.
All right, I accept that.
Of course you'll lie to me, because I don't even want to care. What does the truth matter? And why are you going to be truthful with me when you lie to everybody else? You lied when you smiled at that cracker down the job, right? Lie to me, smile. Treat me the same way you would treat him.
I can't treat you the way I treat him.
You must. Because I've caught the frowns and the anger. He's happy with you. Of course he doesn't know you're unhappy. You grin at him all day long. You come home and I catch hell. Because I love you, I get least of you. I get the very minimum. And I'm saying, fake it with me. Is that too much of the black woman to ask of the black man? For 10 years, so that we can get a child on his feet that says, yeah, father smiled at mother. He talked to me about school today. Who cares that you can read or can't read? Most Americans can't read. Most people can't read. They look at the pictures.
Baby.
Bars.
Baby, I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying.
Hey, I think she caught him when she was like, lie to me, you must. She was like, you lie to that cracker down there at the job. So if you can lie to him, you can lie to me. You saw his face go. Hey, she got him right there. She did. And it's still right, Miss Raina. It's still relevant today. Listen, again, the conversation has to be had, and it had to be had. But the fact that she stunned him and caught him off guard to where he had to be like, she was like, you smile at that cracker all day, but then you come home and give me the least. Bars. It kind of left him a little speechless for the, right. And that's the thing, Danielle. Because see, this the thing. I don't think people understand that it wasn't just for her to one up on him. Because people forget what she said shortly after that. She said, just so for 10 years, so my son could look up and say, my father smiled at my mother. You see what I'm saying? So what she's saying is, fake it with me like you fake it with them for the sake of the kids. That's what she was saying. See, a lot of people just look at the debate in it and they be like, oh, she got him. And she did get him. But I think the bigger picture of what she was saying was, just like you can put on the front for them, put on the front for the sake of your family. And that's what I think made him be like, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh wait, you know, because remember, he's 20 years her senior. The women he grew up with don't talk like Nikki Giovanni at the time. You know what I'm saying? So that's what she's saying. Like, if you can fake it with them, fake it with me, so we can produce some productive children. You know what I'm saying? Unless, what I got from it is, if you can't fake it with them, if you can fake it with them but can't fake it with me, then you don't need to fake it with none of us. You need to tell that white boy down at the job, the foreman or whatever, how you really feel, and show and give him the same vigor and the same BS that you gave to me. I think that's what she's saying, but we all know she doesn't have to say it, because all she has to do is say, if you could do it with him, do it with me. But it's not because of me. I know you full of crap. She's saying so that we can produce a better man. That was bars. That was bars. That was bars. I ain't gonna lie. Nikki ate up. She ate on that. She ate.
And I don't disagree, but no, I'm gonna be honest and think about it really. I'm not so sure that that is a human possibility. If I have to smile all day, and the cat on the job, the foreman, you don't understand why I'm smiling.
Mm-hmm.
Not because I want to smile, I'm smiling because that baby needs new shoes. I can't give a performance all day on the job and come home and give a performance all night in the house.
Okay, so one of the performances will stop.
Yes. So you say, and okay, I might be willing to go with it, but who's going to pay the rent?
Back to that again. The rent will get paid.
Look, baby, I'm willing to play it your way, but you have to see my point of view.
I see your point of view, but the rent will have to get paid.
The price of the rent is my smile.
No. I don't want you prostituting yourself. I demand.
I don't want you prostituting yourself either. One of us has got to work.
You'll work it. You will work it out because you are intelligent enough and you are sensitive enough. You are a man enough to work out a new system, because we started off with Everybody's Protest Novel and we're back there again. As long as the assumptions are the same, nothing will change.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we must corner ourselves to make a new assumption.
Okay, I buy it.
So what Nikki is saying is, okay, no, what he's saying is, one gonna have to give off the other, right? I can't smile at the cracker and then come home and smile at you. She was like, why not? He said, because I got to pay the bills. Mind you, this is during the era of time where typically, not all the time, but typically, Medusa said, Nikki got James chain smoking. Hell yeah, he lighting them cigs back to back, ain't he? Girl, he can't get enough of smoke. Look, he's saying that he can't because who's going to pay the bills? Now, her only response is they going to get paid. But to his point, he's like, yeah, but if I tell the cracker or show the man, the clear man, how I really feel, he's not going to pay me. And then who's going to take care of us? You see what I'm saying? So I understand his point. But her thing is, as a black man, and I love this, I think this part got overlooked too. Her thing was, as a black man, you have the capability of figuring it out. You're that smart. You're that intelligent. You're that high up on this totem pole that you don't even know that you can find a happy medium and figure it out. And honestly, in some other cultures, I think a lot of the women hold their men to that standard. And again, they don't have the pressures that black men have, so it's not the same. But I think that's what she's saying. Like, you're looking at me saying who's gonna pay the rent, is if you're looking for me to help. But if you're the man that you say you are, you figure it out. I get it. This is a dope conversation. And Paul James can't stop lighting them cigs. Do you hear me? Camels all over the place. Camel butts everywhere.
In case it was sort of like left up in the air, or somebody, like I didn't get it across. I really think that my father, Jones Giovanni, is a groovy cat, and he's lived with my mother now for 35 years under holy wedlock. And I think that that's good for them. You know, I think that sort of thing worked for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the main thing that they were able to love despite it all.
That's what we were talking about before.
Right,
You know?
exactly.
And you, by the way, you do not have to tell me that you love your father. I knew that.
Yeah, I think he's a gas.
Yes,
I just don't want to marry him.
I love that. I love that. I absolutely love that. That was a dope interaction right there. It really was. That was dope. I want to share another video with y'all.
What is relevant about this is that whereas 40 years ago when I was born, the question of having to deal with what is unspoken by the subjugated, what is never said to the master, of having to deal with this reality was a very remote possibility. It was in no one's mind. When I was growing up, I was taught in American history books that Africa had no history, and neither did I. That I was a savage, about whom the less said the better, who had been saved by Europe and brought to America. And of course, I believed it. I didn't have much choice.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the only books there were. Everyone else seemed to agree. If you walk out of Harlem, ride out of Harlem, downtown, the world agrees. What you see is much bigger, cleaner, whiter, richer, safer than where you are. They collect the garbage. People obviously can pay their life insurance. The children look happy, safe. You're not. And you go back home. And it would seem then, of course, that it's an act of God, that this is true, that you belong where white people have put you. It is only since the Second World War that there's been a counter image in the world. And that image not come about through any legislation on the part of any American government, but through the fact that Africa was suddenly on the stage of the world, and the Africans had to be dealt with in a way that had never been dealt with before. This gave an American Negro for the first time a sense of himself beyond a savage or a clown. It has created, and will create, a great many conundrums. One of the great things that the white world does not know, but I think I do know, is that black people are just like everybody else. One has used the myth of Negro and the myth of color to pretend and to assume that you are dealing essentially with something exotic, bizarre, and practically, according to human laws, unknown. Alas, it is not true. We are also mercenaries, dictators, murderers, liars. We are human too. What is crucial here is that unless we can manage to establish some kind of dialogue between those people whom I pretend have paid for the American dream and those other people who have not achieved it, we will be in terrible trouble. I want to say,
hey, that's a bar. He said to pretend that those people, I have to pretend that those people paid for the American dream, because we know they didn't pay for nothing. They got paid to come and get the American dream. I was talking about that earlier. I really hate that at the time they didn't know that Africa, although we share melanin, was not directly associated. Their success wasn't directly associated with ours. But again, it's the time in which we were at the time. Okay. James Baldwin, one of them people where you got to listen to everything he's saying, because it be so many like bars inside of bars. You really got to pay attention to him. Like, that's how great of an orator he was. Like, he said some stuff, and when you think about what he said after he said, you be like, oh, okay. Like, it goes over your head immediately sometimes.
The end, the last, is that is what concerns me most. We are sitting in this room, and we are all least we like to think we are, relatively civilized, and we can talk to each other at least on certain levels, so that we could walk out of here assuming that the measure of our enlightenment, or at least our politeness, has some effect on the world. It may not. I remember, for example, when the ex-Attorney General, Mr. Robert Kennedy, said that it was conceivable that in 40 years in America we might have a Negro president. And that sounded like a very emancipated statement, I suppose.
Mind you, almost 40 years to the day we got Barack Obama, but neither here nor there.
To white people. They were not in Harlem when this statement was first heard, and did not hear, and possibly will never hear, the laughter and the bitterness and the scorn with which the statement was greeted. From the point of view of the man in the Harlem barbershop, Bobby Kennedy only got here yesterday. And now he's already on his way to the presidency. We've been here for 400 years, and now he tells us that maybe in 40 years, if you're good, we may let you become president.
Pause. What they didn't know was that Bobby Kennedy's daddy and them was in with the mob, allegedly. And that's how Bobby Kennedy just got here yesterday, and he on his way to presidency, but telling Black Americans who have been in America since the beginning, they got to wait another 40 years. The things you know when you know what's going on behind the scenes, huh?
What is dangerous here is the turning away from anything any white American says. The reason for the political hesitation, and in spite of the Johnson landslide, is that one has been betrayed by American politicians for so long. And I'm a grown man, and perhaps I can be reasoned with. I certainly hope I can be. But I don't know, and neither does Martin Luther King, none of us know how to deal with those other people whom the white world has so long ignored, who don't believe anything the white world says, and don't entirely believe anything I or Martin say. And one can't blame them. You watch what has happened to them in less than 20 years. It seems to me that the city of New York, for example, this is my last point, we've had Negroes in it for a very long time. If the city of New York were able, as it has indeed been able, in the last 15 years to reconstruct itself, tear down buildings and raise great new ones, downtown and for money, and has done nothing whatever except build housing projects in the ghetto for the Negroes. And of course the Negroes hate it. Presently the property does indeed deteriorate because the children cannot bear it. They want to get out of the ghetto. If the American pretensions were based on more solid, a more honest assessment of life and of themselves, it would not mean for Negroes, when someone says urban renewal, that Negroes simply going to be thrown out into the streets, which is what it does mean now. This is not an act of God. We're dealing with a society made and ruled by men. If the American Negro had not been present in America, I am convinced that the history of the American labor movement would be much more edifying than it is. It is a terrible thing for an entire people to surrender to the notion that 1/9 of its population is beneath them. And until that moment, until the moment comes when we, the Americans, we, the American people, are able to accept the fact that I have to accept, for example, that my ancestors are both white and black, that on that continent we are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other, and that I am not a ward of America. I am not an object of missionary charity. I am one of the people who built the country. Until this moment, there is scarcely any hope for the American dream, because the people who are denied participation in it, by their very presence, will wreck it. And if that happens, it's a very grave moment for the West.
Thank you.
That part didn't go over my head. He said he had white ancestry. Crazy work. But yeah. Whew. James Baldwin was a deep brother. He was deep. And if there is another one of him around, they make sure they quiet that mother effer down. Do you hear me? Because see that last part, when he's talking about how they'll wreck it if they can't get, yeah, that's big. Shout out to everybody in the building, y'all. Get the likes up on the video. The deserving one. Thank you for the super chat, deserving one, or the super sticker. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Y'all get the likes up on the video. Baby, thank you for the super chat. She says the oppressed man requires an outlet. This is a formula for either abuse or for the women to become the mule of the family. That's why some Black women find it peaceful to exist outside of a relationship. Absolutely, without a doubt. And I think that's why I said the conversation needed to be had, but it wasn't as black and white as it was, even though it probably should have been or could have been, but it just wasn't. But ultimately, I was one of those women up until I met my ex. My boyfriend that I have now, my man that I have now. And I'm gonna be completely honest. I enjoy going home and having my space. Not because he does anything, but because sometimes you just need, you know what I'm saying? Like people, women, Black women in particular, have found solitude outside of that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Only the future can tell. But whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? We'll see. Yeah. But I think he's a great person and a great orator. And I think that he's not talked about enough. He's really not. And I know why, but he's definitely not talked about enough. Now, I don't know if he was a Fed like the rest of them. I know he was cool with the Feds. Yeah, we don't know. Because, you know, I ain't gonna lie. Every time I hear the father, they don't know who the father is, I'll be like, what you talking about, Willis? You know what I'm saying? What you talking about, Willis? Girl, who you talking about, real talking, Miss J? Listen, I don't want to give up my space. I don't. I love my man. I do. I like going home. I like Monday getting up and going home. I like coming over here on the weekends, but I equally like going home too. I like my space. I like going home and it's just me, and I like it. I don't, like I said, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I know it feels good right now. That's all I got to say. I enjoy my space. I really do. Like for real. I really enjoy it. And maybe it's healthy, maybe it's not. We'll see. But I know right now it's healthy. It makes me feel good. But nevertheless, shout out to everybody in the building, y'all. We're gonna call it a night. Y'all, please like the video if you haven't already. Shout out to everybody for pulling up. I'm so sorry it's a short one, but I came on late because of work and all that stuff. But like I said, here in some months, you'll have me full time. I promise you'll have me full time. It'll be some upgrades and some other stuff going on. But nevertheless, y'all love on each other. Take care of each other. I'm about to joke y'all up out of here. Shout out to everybody in the building. Keep MOB's wife in your prayers. MOB, if you're still on here or if you come back, please send me an email or something to let us know the update. We love you. We praying for you. And shout out to everybody in the building. Love y'all down to the ground. I'm about to joke y'all up out of here. Peace.
Mic check, 1 2 1 2. We live, baby. Come on. That's right. Okay. Can you hear me now? Oh, let's go. It's your boy Big Chew, the voice of the beat. You know what I want? Blaze up. Come on, blaze up.
It's the beat for me.
Wah 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 for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Drop it for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Do it for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Come on, baby, we are. For your boy. For your boy. Also for your boy. Fix it for your boy. lift it up. Penny bust it open for your B-O-Y. Penny for you, rockin' for you, lift it up, baby. Mix it when you bust it up.
Come on, Blaze, you know. Drop me a nasty beat.
Mr. Carroll, how you give the voodoo doll time to talk? I don't get no fucking time to talk.
Who the voodoo doll is?
The nigga you just had up here.